item on the list is the panel discussion, and I'm tasked with to moderate that panel discussion. I'm not as good as Himanshu, but I request our esteemed guest, Professor Dogan, to be one of the panelists. I have heard him at least n number of times at CSI, ACM events. So, and his every talk is as enlightening as what he gave just today. The second panelist, technology officer, responsible for providing technology leadership for Cognizant and also heads the Global Technology Office. His varied experience helps Cognizant focus and develop expertise on years and the VP for IBM System Set Technology Lab in India, and he leads an interdivisional team for hardware, software, and research engineers working with enterprise customers and IBM clients-facing units. He joined IBM in 1970 architecture and design. He has established the systems architecture for several generations of IBM CMOS mainframes. He has driven collaborations for mainframe class systems function into IBM Enterprise Server Division. Our next panelist is Vishnara. He leads Cloud Services and Infrastructure Consulting Group and responsible for developing and implementing cloud-based solutions. He is also responsible for architecting. He is also the location leader for India Software Lab in Pune. In his current role, he oversees the IT operation analysis mission as well as supports worldwide clients and at ISL. Omkar has held leadership positions in information management and rational divisions of IBM Software Group. Recently, he championed IBM's Smarter City Pune Corporate Social Responsibility Initiative, collaborating with the local government at Pune. Thank you, folks, for joining. An effort to support open source, open standards, and technologies like Tosca, OpenStack. Can you explain to us why IBM sees this is critical for success of cloud adoption?
Dr. Sadagopan and Dr. Guru, both of you talked very eloquently about integration, interoperability, and scalability. Right? And if you do that in a proprietary way, there is no way you can achieve any of these things, right? So I'll give you some specific examples. So I typically work on two areas which are related to cloud, right? And as Dr. Sadagopan said, I should not say cloud computing. It is just ingrained in what we do. So the first area I work quite a bit, and Vijay is a key member of it, is infrastructure as a service, right? So in that area, what you will see is when you are planning the deployment of your infrastructure, or if you are planning the provisioning of that infrastructure, what you need to do is, and what we are actively doing is, we are embracing things like the Tosca standard, right? And you can look at some of these standards as, when I started programming, we had in Unix these makefiles, right? So we used to do a build of it and include the .h file and stuff like that, right? So where cloud computing is heading towards is infrastructure as a code. So what you will see is just like you were able to build your projects, now as part of your entire cloud infrastructure, and you just don't need the source code, right? But you also need the infrastructure to be part of it. So what standards like Tosca will allow you to do is, and Dr. Guru talked about patterns, right? So patterns for software, patterns for infrastructure. So these are the things that you will be able to do in a fairly standard way by using standards like Tosca. So look at Tosca as having a makefile wherein you can talk about the topology of your infrastructure, the relationship between them, and the likes, right? So that is how we use Tosca as one of the standards. It is very much open source. Earlier days, you had to do all these things manually, right? And what this helps us achieve is the key thing, the third thing, Dr. Guru, which you said was automation, right? So by virtue of automation, you can achieve the huge scale that you want as well as quick time to value for your solutions. So Tosca is one thing that we do quite a bit. Dr. Guru talked about OVIRT, right, which is adoption of KVM as being more prevalent in the cloud computing arena. So Vijay actually is involved in a project that looks at how do you data replication in a KVM type environment. So we look at those things very in a big way. The third thing we look at is, as was mentioned, OpenStack, right? So as part of your cloud infrastructure, you have to worry about compute, networking, and storage, and how, say, a networking device from Juniper connects in your cloud environment, or how F5 connects in your cloud environment, or how you use NetApp, right, from a storage standpoint. Now, earlier days, we used to do it in a proprietary way. So if you are familiar with some of the IBM products, we didn't do it the open way, and there was some effort in doing it by our own selves, and the adoption of it was also not as much as we would have wanted. But by, again, using standards, we are able to do some of these things very quickly, and more so, we are able to have community participation as part of it. So we are embracing open standards and OpenStack in a big way, and Vijay, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Omkar. So, Vishay, Omkar gave us a view of from the product side of things. Okay, these are most of our products are built on top of OpenStack. We exploit Tosca and everything. From a system integrator perspective, what are the success factors for, when you say, for cloud adoption?
First of all, thank you for having me here. I think it's a pleasure and privilege to be on the podium as Dr. Professor and Dr. Gururaj. And in fact, Professor's campus is right across where I go to work every day. So I've heard you many times, and again, thank you. So on the cloud adoption front, I think what we are seeing in the market is, if you look at both from a infrastructure as well as the software and the application side. Let me talk about the infra space. And of course, we have multiple vendors, both on the who cross over both on the IaaS as well as the software, whether it be a service or providing such services to the infrastructure lying underneath. The first thing is on the adoption side, things like DevOps, right? One of the things that we preach, or rather we advise clients, is that they need to look at DevOps something as a critical enterprise capability for continuous software delivery. So by that, what we mean is, if you look at the, and then most of us out here, system integrators, one of the things that we see today is the workloads around SAP on private cloud, just as an example. And we know when you're addressing such a migration, today in a typical enterprise in a SAP environment, they have multiple development environments, be it testing, UAT, production, and so on. Currently, we are doing some work for a pharma distributor. They have about 42 test and UAT and pre-prod environments. So when you talk about DevOps in such a environment, we see just in the infrastructure space close to a reduction of 35 to 40%. And then when you start automating the processes of software delivery, software development, and testing, the complete life cycle. And then since DevOps stresses on collaboration across all the stakeholders, and these kind of value additions, value items is what clients are seeing first as something that helps them towards cloud adoption. And the other thing, of course, is the way infrastructure gets delivered, be it from an external source such as hosted private cloud or public cloud adoption, or even the converged infrastructure systems that we, including IBM, today have in the market. So we look at helping clients get onto cloud, adopt cloud for their enterprises from multiple angles, and again, these are and then while we talk to them, it's not selling technology, it's selling business value, and I think we are very clear on that. So addressing the operational problems, and drawing out a roadmap, what they would see in the very near term. I think that's key. And early on, 5-10 years ago, we used to talk about enterprise life cycle being 5, 8, 10 years, and I think clients are not willing to wait that long. So they need to see value quickly, and we are there to identify that from multiple angles and sources.
Thanks, Vish. So, Raj, We have heard for the last 2 days about analytics, social, mobile, and all that. Do you see most of the IT companies in India talk about it a lot? So do you see all these technologies converge at some point? Like the analytics is driving the cloud market somewhere. So do you think all these will converge together and will come under a single technology?
I don't know whether that will become a single technology, but the convergence is happening, right? None of these 4 technologies, the smart stack, what we talk about, can't stand on its own unless you do it for very, very tactical stuff. If you really want a business value, all these 4 play against each other, with each other, to give you a better output for the industry. Anything you take, right? Even that you talked about the connected car. We want to measure the driver's behavior and try to make the insurance pay-per-use. Instead of, if I buy a vehicle, instead of paying for the entire year, some X number of dollars or rupees, we want to say, hey, depending on your usage pattern, I'm going to charge you. If you drive in a busy city all the time with brake and very quickly, I want to charge you more. Or if you're going in a freeway with no traffic around you, you want to charge less. That's a traffic pattern based, or the driver behavior based. All that, if you look at that, that involves everything, right? There is a device. It could be just a mobile device. In fact, one of the companies have come out, you don't have to even put a device in the car. Your mobile can act as a device as well. So we connect to the car, then connect it to the cloud, and do the analytics at the back end, and then provide the services back to that. All these 4 are getting connected. Any example, if you go to San Francisco, the drivers, any car driver can take your credit card and attach a small thing to his mobile, the Square stuff, right? You can pay by when you are flying. He doesn't need a device or anything like that. He connects it to the mobile device on the cloud, on the back-end analytics, and the payment system. So it's already happening. Bringing value to the customers is only by thinking all the SMAC together. Whether we like it or not, we will be having all these 4 play a major role in every IT industry. But it doesn't mean the old things will go away. Still, we have a lot of mainframes running in the payroll systems, and all these things are still happening. But the smart technologies will be part and parcel of every IT infrastructure. So for me, cloud is more like what Dr. Gurra said. It's a workload management. We need to manage the mainframe systems as well as the mid-range and everything together. Will there be one way I can manage it? That's where the DevOps, what he talked about, also plays a big role. I need a management facility to manage all these pieces, whether it's a mainframe or a mid-range or a converged box. Even the converged boxes are taking into different shapes and forms right now, but we need a common mechanism to do that. That's why hopefully some standards will evolve, so that the OpenStack, some people say it will take another 5 years, but no. Otherwise, the Amazons of the world are going to take a major share. So now all the other competitors have realized and they have come together, including IBM joined recently to that OpenStack. So we think that is the only answer we will be playing with us.
Professor Govan, you want to add something on this?
Nothing much, see, look at cloud as a natural evolution. That's first, So it is not that somebody suddenly got a nirvana and something like that. This is a very natural kind of an evolution that happens in every other industry. See, oftentimes it is good to go outside of IT industry, then you will get. Look at what happened, right? The famous GE, okay? They came with a bulb, and then, to sell the bulb, you also need electricity. They came with the generator. Then putting too many generators is too much of a mess. They came with a power plant. Then you have a power plant, you have to evacuate electricity. Then you came with a transmission system. Then, the transmission fellows can't do it in a very dense place like a city. You need a distribution system, right? So in some sense, what we call as a 3-tier is a generation, transmission, distribution, right? I tell you this one, like when Indira Gandhi kind of started the Madras Atomic Power Project, okay, failures are there often, right? And particularly failures happen when there is a show, When one of the Windows was launched by Bill Gates, it failed, right? So we all know. So when Indira Gandhi pressed the button, the lights went up. But some of us knew the actual power came from Mettur electricity plant. That is a beauty, right? I think that is precisely what cloud is doing, right? So what happened? You don't know where the server is. You don't know where the MIPS is coming from. You don't know where the storage is coming from. So ultimately, people want information, right? I want to do a process. I want to do maybe an e-commerce transaction, I want to be able to download something, I want to be able to kind of look at, a doctor wants to look at a patient's record. So we don't want them to be tired, you don't want them to remember an IP number, you don't want them to type the URL. Who cares, right? So I think that is what actually cloud as such it provides. And that is the reason why cloud will succeed, even if everybody wants to stop it. Because that is what ultimately people want, right? People want, I want water. I don't know whether it's come from Ganga or Kaveri, right? And for me, it is delivered in a bottle, right? I don't care. Actually, Tatas are supposed to have a bottling plant in Himalayas. Okay? And you could actually be drinking it in Kerala, right? And that is the beauty. I think cloud delivers that beauty. It is basically an orchestration beauty. As good old principle, right? Information at the right time, at the right place, in the right man, in the right form. It's a very cliche, but that is what people want. So, in that sense, it is a very natural evolution of cloud.
Thank you, Professor.
I hope I answered it.
Yeah, sure. So, Dr. Guru, do you see the enterprise systems like mainframes or high-end, very high-end Unix servers do play a critical role in the cloud adoption? I'm coming from the background because if you look at most of the public clouds, they are on the cheaper versions of these servers. So what role they play as we go forward?
So let me piggyback on what the professor was saying, right? The realities of the world really haven't changed much. I would say cloud has been proven to be successful. Why do I say that? The reason I say that is because I am part of a customer council that IBM learns by dealing with major customers. And this is specifically for the high-end, we call it the advanced Z Business Council leaders. And for the last 5 years, we have been discussing in that space, cloud, what needs to be done for cloud, and to get their perspective. These are the top banks. These are the top insurance companies. These are the top retailers. These are the top telecom others. So, you know what they tell us? What do you think we have been doing for the past 45 years? We have built an internal enterprise cloud. The mainframe has provided cloud computing as the backbone of every single frigging enterprise on earth. We have done that. So what do you want me to do differently? When you say cloud computing, we understand IT, we understand business, and you can't tell us what we need to do. We all. Now, I want to make 2 points with that. One, the realities of what cloud computing is trying to do has been done and has been done extraordinarily well for 40 years because the Western civilization has been built on it. No question about it. However, what has been done is only for a certain set of workloads for a certain set of enterprise customers. It is like you buy a few years ago in the automobile industry, anti-lock brakes are being able to provide defrosters. Even today, you can buy a Mercedes where there's the little wiper that wipes the headlights. Fundamentally important, but it is not done anybody else. Is it because it's not doable, like the professor was saying? It can be done. Obviously, there's a combination of business model, there is a combination of innovation, who makes the money, how you make the money. All of them are important, okay? But the users, what people want, which is what the professor said, has been understood and has been built. So the challenge is, how do you make it affordable? How do you build it on a garden variety of systems, if you want to call it that? Not all of them are capable, not all of them are equal, right? Why do I say that? The professor knows there is something called the the tape-oriented automata system, the very first one that was ever built, right? The very first one that was conceptualized. Every single computer that has been built is an extension of it. Why not just build the original one? Because it is not good enough. So what it comes down to is, how do you keep on building the foundation that I mentioned earlier, better and better, so that you can build better things? And in that space, mainframes are able to take existing clients as well as new clients forward. In the growth markets, for example, there is Nanjing government that is building a cloud information structure on the basis of the mainframe, including the ZBX or the hybrid system, right? Algar Telecom, a Brazilian company in the growth market, right? They are building, once again, on the basis of the enterprise systems, combination of Power, mainframe, as well as Intel architecture blades that are part of it. They are building a cloud infrastructure on it. The reason why it can be done is what Onkar said and what I mentioned earlier in my talk, which is understanding that cloud, as Deep said yesterday, cloud equals virtualization, virtualization management, workload, driven down, doing the right things. And our systems have been doing virtualization forever, whether it be Power or mainframe, and they have been building in the capabilities for open capabilities, like OpenStack was discussed earlier. The very first virtualization on the mainframe, which is 45 years old, is ZVM. ZVM, perhaps even the professor has done something on this. ZVM now participates in OpenStack-based way of supporting cloud infrastructure. Today, it is shipping. So all it requires is building the right software that is available on the basis of a Linux environment, bring it in, and it works. Now, we are getting exactly the same state on our Power systems. Power has done fantastic virtualization, Power VM. We said, that's good, but not good enough. We need to get to open source based way. We need to build KVM, which is gaining traction in the growth markets, right? And that needs to be optimized to Power, and that's Power KVM. And on top of that, build OpenStack based ways of Linux based workloads. It's called Power VC, Power Virtualization Center, with user interfaces that are modern, GUI based, and programmatic, so that you can drive down from top down. And by the way, the top down is happening in the mainframe space too. So all I'm saying is, number one, we've been there, done that. When I say we, I'm talking about our customer set. It can be done again, it will be done again, because the right things are being built.
I just want to add, only the cost is the issue, right? Nobody questions that, all the technologies were there and have been there for a long time. But if you look at the cost perspective, that's what people are looking for, to become very cost effective. In fact, I was talking to the CTO of Amazon. He was saying after the games played on the Amazon, the next highest workload they have, surprisingly, it's a banks doing risk analytics on Amazon over the weekends. They don't want to name the banks, they don't want to even disclose the people who are using it, but the heavy load of risk analytics is done on public cloud, taking it, because the cost is very, very low, and they can get it done within 1 hour, because to set it up in a data center, it may take a lot of time and effort and building it up. So that piece of making the on-demand at a very least cost-effective way is the key. I mean, I think IBM products are very good compared to only the price is the issue. I mean, whatever we have been dealing with. I don't know whether I can say it politically in this meeting or not, but that is the issue. If IBM can focus on the price point and then compete, then only we'll have to see the end goal. That's my...
No, that's a very good observation, because that's why I said mentioned earlier. It comes down to the innovation and the business model. If you have the innovation, you can always fix the business model, trust me, right? If you don't have the innovation, you can't go lead with it. So Amazon got a good start, but if you look at what Amazon is doing, by the way, none of this is to refute what you're saying, Raj, and that is, there is always a healthy debate private, public, right? And people, when I discuss the data centers, people are investigating how far you can take public-based cloud. Banks are trying it. I know, for example, there are a few tier 3 kind of banks. Some of them will succeed, some of them will not succeed, but that's how the industry works. It is try what's there and what's possible. But my point is, it's a combination of the business model, it's a combination of who is doing it, and every one of the, whether it be the Amazons or the Googles, they are the new breed of data centers, and they have certain characteristics. That's what I mentioned earlier. These are coming in from certain workloads they know how to do very well, right? Like Microsoft and Intel claimed 10 years ago, by the way, we can replace a mainframe because every single freaking thing that the mainframe can do, we can do. They said that. HP tried to build them. It's called alternative mainframes. Mainframes are still doing very well, as Deep pointed out, right? Because the fundamental characteristics of what people and enterprises and consumers need are not done by exactly the same way. This is not to say that Amazon is not going to succeed in doing, public cloud-based everything. However, things that want to find its own level. That's what my way of saying it. If there is genuine value, people are building on that. If genuine value is there somewhere else, that's where it's going to go. So it is innovate, experiment, and that's how the industry is going to learn.
Yeah, thanks, Silverraj. Raj, Cloud Foundry, AppFact, Heroku are becoming more of a niche stuff in the things. It's from the innovation perspective, from the technology perspective. These are being touted as more of the success stories, right, on the PaaS front at least. Do you see some of the similar products coming up in a near future, which can address some of the some similar segments or some disparate segment, but helping out the development community of what they want to do from the DevOps and other perspective? And how does SI plan to take it?
See, basically, I'll tell you, recently McKinsey published a report. They just talked to 550 CIOs and published the report. It talks about 80% of the people want to go in a private cloud way, not public, as Dr. Gurraj said, because of various reasons for regulations and security. You can just buy it and slap it in, you get a private cloud, right? That is the second approach people are trying. And the third approach is completely on open source. I'll just build it, everything from my piece. Then they calculated the ROI for this. And the ROI for the last option, where you build everything on open source, your own plumbing mechanism and automation mechanisms, all of that, that is what will give you the best of the ROI. And it will take a lot of time, effort. That's where all the SIs like us make money by newer innovations, if at all, right? The converged infrastructure, ROI is much less, but you get it quickly, right? You just buy the box pure systems and you can manage workloads like Hadoop kind of a thing, analytics, or you can manage systems of engagement, systems of record. All of them you can do by partition, and it is best tailored for switching whatever you want. So the answer is, whoever is looking for quick time turnaround, they're going for converged infrastructure. They are just getting into the new business. They can afford to buy that. It's higher cost, but you get it quickly. Whereas the people who have got a lot of disparate systems and they want to really, really go in an open source way, they are looking for SIs like us to help them. Can you do? Of course, we will use a lot of products, but we'll have to stitch it together to get to what they are looking for. So the middle one is somewhere in between, right? I don't think it is going to really take off in the way either the first one or the last one takes. Somebody who wants a compromise solution has to go for the middle.
I just want to add that what we're also seeing in client community is what we call the privatized PaaS, right? So they have a private cloud or they have converted their existing infra to a private cloud and want to play around, experiment, whatever you want to call it, with a PaaS kind of setup. And in this way, especially when you talk about large enterprises with multiple line of businesses where you have individual groups of development teams, I think the privatized PaaS is catching on. Whether you get caught software or applications or you use what you have in a PaaS environment, I think the owners of private cloud are also playing with having a pass on their on-prem private cloud to enable such activities for their development teams and so on.
So Vijay, I'll add this one thing to what you talked about, small players and stuff. So what IBM is doing is, that we are focusing a lot on the user experience and the user centricity. Very targeted, what are some of the personas of who everything for everybody, right? And that is where we are seeing that we will be able to give from IBM the robustness and the security and the higher order of SLAs, while at the same time give the quick time to value of some of the nimbler players, right? By really focusing on who needs what and how we can do it very quickly.
Thanks, Omkar. So, Dr. Guru, I would like to take a clue from Raj's talk and just ask you is, how is this whole integrated converged systems accelerating the cloud adoption? How is it doing it?
Raj made a good set of points. This is also the reason why we are all partners, right? We certainly don't want to be in the commodity business, right? And other people, I won't mention names, right? There is a way you can try to build on a commodity basis, and you have to have the volume. I don't know if there is enough volume in the cloud space to do that. That's the reason why what we are trying to do is to take the enterprise environment where there is an opportunity and evolve that to the cloud computing environment. That's the example that I gave with the mainframe, right? Because if you never had a mainframe, nobody's going to buy a mainframe just for cloud. But if you have a powerful set of enterprise apps like transactions and databases and stuff like that, and you want to enable that on the basis of a cloud, then there is a powerful advantage, and the TCO has to be constructed in a very different way. So I think the question that you asked, right, is, refresh me again. What was the specific that you wanted me to?
How does the
integrated infrastructure, the converged infrastructure. The converged infrastructure is a necessary component in whether it is done through OpenStack-like environments or something else. The converged infrastructure is a necessary component in our view on being able to get to this in an appropriate way. I'll give the example of ESDS, right? There was the reference account I was mentioning in the industry analysts. So Dr. Rajiv Papnaje, right? He was talking about why he picked PureFlex over and above what others in the industry are providing as a converged infrastructure. And he named them, and I won't name them here. And you know who they are, right? The answer was the breadth of the capability that IBM had. By the way, they consider themselves a small and medium enterprise. They are more than a startup, right? They said, am I going to go chase a storage vendor and make them work? Am I going to go do the testing to make sure that this storage vendor gets the stuff from a different technology source for their hypervisor, a different technology source from server vendor, and a different source from a network vendor? Am I going to do the testing to make sure, or am I going to rely on them? Or to put it in a much more simpler way, if I'm a small guy, I want a single neck to choke. And I want to get someone who has the breadth, credibility, and has done the testing to make sure that these things work. I can always go to, whether it be Infosys or Cognizant, to employ services that will do that, but that doesn't necessarily take away the problem, which is when I cobble together stuff, I need to make sure it works. That's the advantage in the converged infrastructure space that we bring.
I just want to add a couple of points. In end of last year, Gartner looked at what was the landscape, how the converged infra performed, and they saw a year-to-year growth of roughly about 54%. And they also pointed out that the data center IT spend was roughly about 3.5% or so. So there is definitely a lot of room to grow. And as Dr. mentioned, I think that the vendor who is able to clearly articulate, the one thing that, when you put all these components together, my system, my rack is the best. And then if they can show the value, then I think they will be the winner in the space. And then to add to that, I think what we're also seeing is the first level of adoption of converged infra is happening for one of the reasons you mentioned is to maintain their existing storage architecture before they go and do some exotic things with converged infra boxes. A lot of, especially if you take what we are saying is in the financial segment, very cagey about data, so they don't want to disturb the storage architecture very much, and they find that it very well fits into the converged infra space. So I think the initial growth, what we're seeing, is coming out of that space, and I think, as I said, the vendor who can better say that, why it all makes sense, I think will be the winner in space.
See, the converged infrastructure, each vendor has got a theme to focus, right? Some people chase the performance. Some people chase, as Gururaj said, integrated value, right? You don't have to stitch the storage to the network and the compute, all of that. I am giving you a tested, fully working, of course, with the flexibility of KVM or on any chip you want, whether it's a Power or x86. That is what IBM is focusing. Another competitor of yours is focusing purely on engineering the hardware for the software, right? So that is a different focus. So each one is attempting to do in a different way, right? I mean, if somebody wants really, really performance 40 times, they will go with somebody. I want to reduce my headache of managing it and integrating it, and I want a quick thing to start immediately, they will go with IBM kind of a product. So again, no, it's becoming very segmented market. Which segment, what purpose you're looking for is the key to choose.
See, we should also really look at it. At the high end, if you go, you actually realize there was a time when servers were computing, storage was storage, networking was switching. But if you really want to go much faster, okay, switching is actually computing. And the damn thing needs a lot of storage. Right? And storage is actually pushing things out, right? You can't only store it, you have to retrieve, right? So damn thing is pushing, how fast you can push. And for that you need computing. So in a sense, and servers actually need to network and to storage. So what is happening is, servers needing to compute and communicate and store. Storage needing to store and communicate. And switching need to compute. Essentially says that all of them actually have to. And at the top of it, the technologies like flash, actually it's confusion also, right? The technology is also, underlying technology is the same. So you actually see there's a very natural evolution. But what happens is, for commodity kind of stuff, okay, something which is made to be a server will always be a great stuff. And so your USB storage will continue to be USB storage, okay? But we are actually, a large storage of several terabytes is not 1,000 USB sticks, right? So when the moment you go to high end, you actually see this convergence has to play, and without which nobody can do it. So it doesn't matter which vendor it's not to do with vendor, it is to do with the underlying technology.
So I'll ask, in the interest of the time, I'll ask Professor for the last question. Where do you see what are the latest trends in the cloud stuff? We have heard hybrid, private, public, all this stuff. What do you see the latest trends are going in from academia perspective?
See, what happens is, from an academic point of view, see, cloud getting into mainstream. That's what I mentioned. Cloud computing will become computing. Cloud getting into mainstream. The second thing we also will see is, there are a lot of issues, because it was growing so fast, we had to put a lot of things together, okay? So things happened. But now if you really look at it, an architecture which completely looks at out of box, out of any of the existing technology, we still don't have today, right? So those kind of architectures will kind of evolve. Third is, that to a large extent right now, you see, good old days we used to do what is called computer system performance. So, you give me a box, every bit of it. So, I never have to take any chance because I can predict everything. The moment I kind of got into the networking and put lots of things together, so a lot of things were beyond me. Okay? So, the network performance prediction capability came down. But now, we have far more sophisticated models. We can model networks of hundreds of thousands of nodes. Okay? So what is possible today is, I think, hopefully in the next 5 years, before you put out a cloud system, you ask all the performance question, I'll be able to give a band. Okay? 20 million users simultaneously accessing, I want to have a page-to-page refresh of sub 1.5 seconds, okay, with 95% probability, right? That kind of stuff we don't have today. That is what will happen. And last but not the least, we also will have more sophisticated security modeling. See, right now security modeling is a lot of patch, okay? So hopefully we'll kind of remove all the patches and come with an absolutely strong one glue. Okay, of course, Dr. Gurraj will have a fun with his glue, okay? So we'll talk about it later. But you will have a far more well-grown, well-orchestrated, well-integrated security model where we'll be actually able to put a wall. Because security is never 100%. So one has to be clear. Like a lot of time people ask me, sir, is putting the data on the cloud secure? I ask them the question, do you have a plane that never fails? But you all take the planes. Right? So what happens is that, of course, will you take a helicopter in the Himalayas in December? You will kind of think about it, right? But you will actually fly a Boeing 747, okay, between San Francisco to LA or San Francisco to Seattle, even in December. Right? So what happens is you have layers of, we actually know each one of the security level is in this band. So that we will be in a position to give maybe the next 5 years. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add the advent of cognitive computing is something that may play into this as well, so that the computers will do what humans would do, right? So analyze the information from what was historically available and be able to predict the right answer for you in a cloud-based environment. Right? So I think that may be a trend we will see in the coming years.
So just to add to that, security is very important, but I think one of the speakers on second day pointed out, right? It's not so much security, it's about trust. Because when everything is said and done, security is insurance. And what it comes down to is trust. Why trust is an important factor is recently Google has learned, right? And Amazon has learned. There will always be breaches. There will always be issues. But ultimately, to do what I need to do using computing, cloud is superfluous. To do computing in the future, can I trust?
Raj, you want to add something?
Oh, okay. Maybe I was thinking that the immediate thing that is happening is the SDN stuff is really coming true, because the computing problem we have solved. Storage was the first one to get virtualized. Now computer layer is virtualized. Now the next thing that is becoming virtualized is the network. Every company in the Silicon Valley is working on that right now. So that is the next thing we would see immediately. That will make your bandwidth problem go away for the cloud, because that puts a lot of restriction right now. I cannot have my data center and cloud computing somewhere else and pass the data back and forth. And even at the data center, if I'm using Hadoop kind of structures, feeding it that thousands of nodes is not possible. The choking is at that network layer. That is the one which is going to be removed very quickly for us. And then the cognitive, all that will evolve.
I would like to thank all the panelists. We are over the time today for their insightful thoughts on various subjects what I could cover in this panel discussion. Thanks, everybody.